the Grace and Inspiration Podcast with Dan Nzinga.
Welcome to the Grace and Inspiration Podcast. My name is Dan Nzinga. I'm happy to guide you. If you have been waiting for the last 15 minutes, wondering what has happened, the wait is going to be worth it because we have some very, very great speakers and great topics to discuss today. But first thing I always do, I always explain why do we call this podcast Grace and Inspiration. So Grace has many meanings. For me, grace can either mean something that you're getting extra. It's not something that you deserve. It's something you're getting extra. The grace of God is, the overflow of something that you're not necessarily paid for, but it's grace. Someone does great grace for you. Grace can also mean when you do something wrong and where there should be punishment, you're given love and consideration. That's grace. You're letting somebody off the hook. That's another way. And grace can also be being graceful, living life with grace and ease, and you're just gracefully going through stuff. So that's kind of one of the energies that I want you to take away from this is the energy, that the feeling that you're getting extra. Okay, we have some great coaches and speakers here today that are giving extra. I'm not paying them any to be here. You're also not paying them to be here. They're giving us their grace on a Sunday. They're very gracious to give us this extra time, this extra knowledge to be here with us. So that is the grace that we're getting, and it's Sunday, so Sunday is like the day of church. So we're getting that grace and inspiration. Is I hope that you are inspired by this call, or you can inspire other people. If you find that you are above being inspired by regular folks, then you should be inspiring others because you have reached a certain level, which I think everybody can be inspired because we can always continue learning, and there are things that we learned that we forgot. So this is the energy of the show is grace and inspiration. We're getting grace. Give us grace as well. We were late. Give us some grace. We'll give you some grace, and that goes around and goes around. Okay, so first I want to introduce our coaches. We always have 2 or 3 coaches here to kind of discuss some great topics. It's a great, interesting topic. If you want to be an extraordinary person, if you want personal growth, you want to elevate yourself to the next level, you're in the right place. It's the right call for you. So I want to introduce you to 3 coaches that I know and love very much, and they're very good. I've learned so much from them. And I'm going to just go one by one and let them introduce themselves. Just say who you are, how long you've been coaching, or what you do. Just, a few minutes or 1 minute of just who you are, the sense of why I would invite you here and what results maybe you've gotten from other people. So go ahead, and Dan, go ahead and go first since you have the same name as me. And welcome.
All right. My name is Dan Jahn, and they call me the Iconic Leadership Coach. Not particularly because I'm iconic, but because I try to build iconic leaders. Them in business, religion, culture, community, life, family, neighborhood, anywhere and everywhere someone can step up and take on a leadership role. That's where I want to be, helping that person do that and change the world.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. And what about you, Patti?
Hi, I'm Patti Akers, and I'm a personal result coach, and I've been coaching one-on-one and in groups for the last 30 years. And I designed an action plan where people take on the 6 major areas of their life and create results in those, the outcomes that they want. And I'm designer of a line of oral cards called Calling Forth cards that have positive motivational words and definitions on them, to support you in viewing a situation or life project in a new light.
Awesome. And I just wanted to add that Patti to me is an extraordinary person because she broke her leg almost 2 years ago, and it was pretty bad. Had to be in the hospital and had to be in bed for months and months, and that never stopped her. She kept on showing up. She kept on doing her program. She kept on coaching people. She would join her, her goals with her weight and everything. And I just see Patti as an unstoppable person, no matter what, and that's definitely an inspiration. So We're going to go deeper into into that conversation of what being extraordinary means. But I want to introduce Megan. Um,
Hi, I'm Megan Henry. I'm an actor and a transformational leadership speaker, and I consider myself more of a guide. And I really like to remind people that the real revolution begins within, right? Life is an inside out game. And the wonderful thing about storytelling is that it can give us some context and it can create some bonding, right? We can relate to one another. But also, as storytellers, we often hold on to the crappy, disempowering stories and the meanings that we create about ourselves and the world around us based on what happened, right? So, how can we learn to take personal responsibility for our narratives? Because that is what is driving our outcomes.
Thank you for being here. And I just before we get into the meat of the conversation, because the point of these calls or the podcasts, one is to highlight the coaches that we have. If anybody needs to, go deeper, wants to contact one of you guys for support, for help, it's a great place. Now, YouTube is great to go and watch videos and stuff, but there's a next level which is community. So before I get into the deep of the conversation, I want to encourage everyone listening is that we're part of a community. I mean, you can be also part of that community where you don't have to wait once a week to get some good stuff. When you're part of the community, there's a higher level interaction, there's a deeper level of intimacy and vulnerability and authenticity and accountability. And all these things help us grow to the next level. So I want to encourage people to be part of personal growth communities, whether it be mine or somebody else's. But just be part of a community where we can continue this conversation even during the week. You don't have to wait until next Sunday to hear more. So that's one thing that I wanted to add to that. Um, yeah, and so now let's start the conversation. So the conversation, and basically the way the format is going to work is I'll ask a question and everybody gets a chance to answer and give their take on it. And the goal is to say things in such a way that people will get something from the conversation, that they will pull something out and they can use it for their week, and they can have it in their mind. And all of you guys have such great insights. I've spoken to known all of you guys for a while now. So I'm really excited to have the conversation. So the conversation is about, what does it look like to be an extraordinary person? That's kind of like the first question. What does it look like to be an extraordinary? I know that you ask 10 people, you're going to get 10 different answers. So we have only 3 people to ask now, and I want to hear, what does it look like? Because you guys help people become extraordinary. That's the whole, purpose in life, as of mine. And so for you personally, what does it look like to be an extraordinary person? Whoever wants to go first, just jump in there. I'll let Megan go first since she was last to go on the other stuff. What does it look like to be an extraordinary person?
Uh, I love this. And, I like to say that everybody's a genius and nobody's special, meaning we all have superpowers. We all have special gifts and things to offer. And not to get too woo woo here, but I personally believe we're all consciousness just experiencing itself, right? In this human endeavor with all the mess and the magic. And I speak from my own journey and where I'm sort of at in my own self development. And for me, being extraordinary is really learning how to give ourselves permission to feel at ease and natural in our uniqueness, because it is in our uniqueness when we can feel comfortable with it, when we don't need external validation, when we don't need somebody to even see our value, right? Think of a tree. A tree doesn't demand that we see its majesty. A tree just is. And then because it's so comfortable, right, in sharing of its gifts, we, of course, see the beauty and the awe and the wonder. And that gives other people permission to unlock their uniqueness and feel comfortable in their authentic expression. And in each of us stepping into our uniqueness, we're naturally going to collaborate in our diversity.
That's beautiful. It reminded me of the law of least effort, from what I've heard you say. By the way, people in the audience watching, if you have any questions while they're speaking, go ahead and put in the comments and make this as interactive as possible. All right, who wants to go next? What does it look like to be an extraordinary person?
And go.
Okay.
So for me, I look at that. My definition of leadership is to show the way to others by going first, to be at the front of or the beginning of something. So to be an extraordinary as an extraordinary person, having an extraordinary life, is for me to be authentic, to be vulnerable, to be real, to be genuine, to include all the stuff that's going on around me, but not having, like, yeah, I did fall and break my leg 21 months ago, and I've been basically bedbound since then, but not having that define me, but I show up as resilient to you, Dan, and most of the people, but it's like, oh, there's things that need to be get done here. How do I let go of the excess weight while I'm in being bedbound? How do I lead? How would I be authentically? And to be an extraordinary person, it's like to actually lean into what is being spoken and what is being heard. It's like, to me, it's like, to listen for people. For me, I listen for what is missing. I not as a complaint, but literally like, oh, what would that access that person give them freedom, give them clarity. So I think it's in the listening too. It's just like, who are you going to be in the situation?
Got it. Got it. So essentially, being an extraordinary person for you is that resilience and being comfortable in your own skin.
But also, and then also being cause in the matter. Like, oh, I'm not going to be, oh, whoa, look at Patty. She fell and she broke her leg. Or even looking like, oh, look at what she's on. She's on all these calls. It's like, what's leading, who I'm being is love and compassion. And that's what's leading the game. It's not the individual situation.
Got it. If I can ask, I know sometimes you've shared in other calls. While during this period, how much weight did you lose while being basically in bed? I know that's very difficult without exercising.
65.
65 pounds.
Hmm.
Okay, wow. That's 65 pounds while being bed bound is not easy, guys. That's a hard thing to lose, that much weight.
But it's not just losing it; it's letting go of it. One of my committed listeners, as she's been dealing with stage 4 cancer, and it's like, what do we want to release into the world? I don't need that weight. That weight was also um, protection to not being allowing myself to be vulnerable. So I'm releasing fear. I'm releasing, it's not poundage, all just poundage. It's like I'm releasing myself into the world, sharing with others authentically, vulnerably,
Wow,
and knowing how the conversation's going to go.
wow, that's deep. That's deep. You put a lot of spin into, like losing weight. It's not just weight; it's all this other stuff.
Now, what are you actually releasing while like this physical thing is happening? Who are you being? Like, I'm being like, I like, people are like, God, you're so positive. You're working today, and I'm like, I'm not working. But I am just on these calls, doing personal growth. Because I'm not just like, oh, I could give. I'm like, I'm usually on like 16 different Zoom meetings a week, filling up my tank.
Got it. All right, cool. Thank you for sharing that. What about you, Dan? What does being an extraordinary person look like?
Well, I always think in terms of if you are granted that in your life, if you are granted the opportunity to be an extraordinary person, what comes with that is extraordinary responsibility. And then this is kind of the superhero, right? The Superman concept. With great power comes great responsibility. I also believe that comes with being extraordinary. If you are an extraordinary person or you are striving to become an extraordinary person, I think one of the most fundamental aspects of that is that you now are going to accept responsibility for the people around you, the people that you know, the people you communicate with, the people you interact with, the people that you have a random brush across their life. All of that becomes your responsibility to exude what being extraordinary means. And that is everything: honesty, adaptability, authenticity, like Patty was saying, and vulnerability, and being creative and being resilient. All of those play a role. But the most important thing about being an extraordinary person is you have to also be a servant to humanity. You have to take on the role of being extraordinary and look within yourself and say, okay, I'm extraordinary now. Now I need to bring everybody else up to this same level, or there's no point in being here. Right? It's like the lonely king. You have a throne, you have a crown, you sit alone. That's not extraordinary. What's truly extraordinary is leading other people to that same pinnacle, taking responsibility for what you see around you, what you see happening when you see someone else in pain, someone else in stress, when you see a community in distress, when you see a country in distress. Do you take responsibility for your role in how we got there and how you can get out of there and how you can bring everyone else with you? That to me is the most important thing about becoming an extraordinary person. You can't just do it and accept extraordinariness has been thrust upon you. That's not extraordinary. What's extraordinary is taking the responsibility for everybody else.
So I heard responsibility and serving others. So my question to you all, and Dan specifically, do you think anybody or everybody can be extraordinary, or is that reserved for God blessing somebody, like a special, like everybody can't be LeBron James and Michael Jordan.
Mm,
We're not blessed that way, but can everybody be extraordinary? Can anybody be
absolutely.
extraordinary?
Absolutely. You use the phrase God blessed, and I don't know. I mean, I'm not a particularly religious person, although I've studied religions a lot. And that phrase kind of strikes me as, aren't we all blessed because we're here? We're alive, we're breathing, thinking creatures with souls and abilities and concepts and ideas. Then yeah, is everyone going to be Michael Jordan? No. Can everybody play basketball? Yes. I mean, to me, when you look at these people that are the extraordinary example of physicality or an extraordinary example of mental capacity, are we all going to be the next Einstein? No. Does that mean you can't enjoy science, support science, explore science, learn about science, participate in the really unbelievable, incredible world that we currently live in, where technology is solving problems and people are using technology as tools and science is supporting the foundation of all that? No, it doesn't mean that at all. It means you absolutely can participate in every single aspect of that. I think the question to me isn't whether or not everybody can become extraordinary. The question is more about, where do you want to become extraordinary? What aspect of your life are you going to take the opportunity to become the extraordinary person? And to me, I don't really care what that is. If you're the best plumber in Denver, then you are extraordinary. If you are the best mother in your community, you are extraordinary. And that, I think, is what we have to kind of let go of, this idea. We have to let go of hero worship. And you kind of picked on one of my pet peeves in bringing up professional athletes, because it's insane to me that our country pays men millions of dollars to run around with a piece of inflated pigskin. It's insane to me that that amount of money is not going to teachers to teach the next generation of children to become extraordinary in their own ways. So that's my response to it. Yeah, absolutely everybody, anybody can become extraordinary, just not all in the same way. That's kind of the point of us being unique humans.
Right.
If we're
Megan,
all Michael Jordan, then there is no Michael Jordan.
got it. Go ahead, Megan.
Sort of to my point earlier, in my opinion, being extraordinary, but really, if you break down the word, it just means extraordinary, right? What are these labels that we have, right? A lot of um, what we think is extraordinary is based on societal standards or somebody else's opinion. But, and again, Dan, to your point, if you are the best mother, right? Not all of us are meant to be on a global stage, but it doesn't mean that we don't have powerful impact in our local communities, which could just be our home, right? That's important. So to me, being extraordinary is giving ourselves permission to play full out in accordance with our highest destiny. Not everybody is supposed to be Michael Jordan. Not everybody wants that level of quote unquote success, right? And again, how do you define success? To me, also being extraordinary is being able to cultivate the inner stability to stay in your personal power amidst the mess and magic of life, right? It's understanding that paradox and polarity doesn't have to knock us off center. And we live in a third dimensional realm where we need paradox and polarity for context. And how can we use that for more of our power to find more wholesome solutions that benefit ourselves and the world around us, right? That to me is extraordinary. And if that is being the ultimate basketball player, great, because I do believe that athletes bring value to people like going to basketball games or football games, and it can be a family event and it can create a sense of camaraderie and community, right? Value is just in the eye of the beholder, but not all of us need to reach that particular level in order to be considered extraordinary.
And so, if I must keep Megan still on there. So, do you think my last question is? Do you think that it's difficult or hard to be extraordinary? And I want Megan to answer, then I'll go to the rest of you guys. Is it a hard or difficult thing?
I mean, if you think of it from a spiritual perspective, it's actually very simple. But as humans, we get caught in the mind, we get caught in our stories, we get caught in, the fear and the drama. I think, giving ourselves permission to accept all of who we are, the good, bad, the ugly, the sideways, not to perpetuate more of the unconscious, unwanted behavior, but rather to go, aha, where am I caught in the shadow? Right? And where is there a gift here that I can glean and turn this into, a higher perspective, or where can I take this lower frequency energy and turn it into higher creational potential? Does that make sense? I mean, I think from my own experience, it's a lifelong journey. Does it take effort in terms of what are your thoughts? Are you sitting with your emotions? Are you pushing your emotions down because of the story that you have around your emotions, right? It's not that our emotions are bad. We've just been taught, whoops, that doesn't feel good. Therefore, I must be bad, right? And so we don't give ourselves permission to live a fully rich life because we're afraid to accept all of who we are. And we're afraid, I believe, to lean into the conflict as a catalyst for growth. So I think extraordinary, first of all, I would invite the audience, what is your definition? Are you defining extraordinary based on what society says? What does success and extraordinary mean to you at your core, in your authentic truth? Maybe extraordinary to you means I give myself grace, to use your word, Dan, and compassion when something goes sideways. Or maybe I'm learning to respond more to life rather than react. That's extraordinary to me. Do you know what I'm saying? What does it mean for you?
Got it. Patty or John? or what's?
I just wanted to add that to me, being extraordinary, everybody is extraordinary. It's they sometimes don't know how to language it or act on it, and it's an opportunity to them just like everything that they it's like to actually claim it that, oh, I'm an extraordinary human being. How am I going to express that?
Got it, John. I mean, Dan.
A couple things come to my mind. Yeah, entertainment is valuable. Absolutely, right? We need entertainment in our lives. We need people who provide that break from the work, the stress, the this, the that. So I'm not saying entertainment's not valuable. I'm saying we need to reassess our valuation of the people that provide entertainment. And I'll just put this in another context. One of the things you've heard me say a lot, Dan, is one of the problems with modern society is we built this really strange follower mentality, right? I've got followers. How many followers do you have? Can you follow me so that I can follow you so that we can find followers who find followers to create more followers? And you try to trace that back. Who's got the most followers? It's not someone talking about leadership. It's not someone talking about being extraordinary. It's not talking about fulfilling your potential. It's some 17-year-old girl in Beijing doing a TikTok dance who has 37 million followers. Okay. That's a problem for our society. That's a problem for us going forward. Because if the people who are taking on the burden and the responsibility of being extraordinary are not reaching a large enough audience, is it because they're not reaching the audience, or is it because the audience doesn't want to see what they have to say? Would the audience rather be entertained? Which goes to another thing we were just bouncing around, is the idea you mentioned, Dan. Some people don't take on this burden of being extraordinary because it takes hard work. Yeah, it does. It does take hard work. And that's not for everybody. If you're lucky enough to be in a position in your life where you don't need to work that hard to achieve your goals, that doesn't mean your goals are invalid. It just means they're different than someone else's. And, in regards to Patty saying everyone's extraordinary in their own way, yeah, I mean, I don't want to downplay that because I do think everyone has skills, everyone has ideas, right? But what we're talking about is stepping up, becoming extraordinary in this context to me, and not to downplay that, Patty, but I think that saying to everyone you're all extraordinary, that's a little bit like, oh, you got the 12th place ribbon. Oh, thanks. I, I guess I appreciate the ribbon, but I clearly didn't put in the effort necessary to get the first, second, or third place and be one of the people on the podium, right? I basically got a ribbon for participation, not for excelling. And I do think that we have a little bit of a problem in our society right now where we are kind of just sort of trying to recognize everybody all the time. And maybe we need to turn the spotlight a little bit more on someone who's, building schools in third world nations as opposed to someone who threw the longest football across a field. I mean, to me, one is an aspect of being in extraordinary physical shape, and that's great. They put in the work to get there. But the other person is being extraordinary to a community, to a country, to a world in a way that is positively affecting people's lives. I'm not saying entertainment doesn't positively affect people's lives, but there's a radical difference, and I think we all have to acknowledge there's a radical difference between an hour of entertainment on a Sunday afternoon and building a school that educates 100 children a year for the next 40 years. Those are different levels of achievement. They come from a different place. They come from a different recognition of how that person wants to fulfill the role of being extraordinary in this lifetime, on this planet, at this time, when we so desperately need people to step up.
On that, because this is actually an interesting topic about being extraordinary. So for me, I don't know if this was Patty meant or Megan meant when it said like everybody can be extraordinary. So if I'm 12th place, I may not be extraordinary in that sport or that event, but I can still be extraordinary at other things. Like I don't think anybody, whether it be, I'm talking about LeBron James or President Bush or Elon Musk or all the things, are more extraordinary than me at everything, because I definitely probably speak better Spanish than all of those guys I just named, right? So for that, I'm better than them. I meet people that are, young person that's 25 years old, and they're extraordinary at certain things. I have to look up to them when it comes to technology or knowing something. They're extraordinary in their own right, in their own thing. They might not be extraordinary at what I'm trying to do or what I'm at my thing, but I don't think anybody in the world is better at me at everything. And so in that case, they can't be more extraordinary than I am unless we focus on that one specific thing. But if I focus on my specific thing, then I'm like, I'm more extraordinary than you because I've visited more countries, or I've done this, or I'm more extraordinary at stay hanging in a marriage. I'm more patient and suffering through a marriage than you are. You gave up faster, or whatever it is. I can stay single for longer. I can stay married for longer. Like nobody can be extraordinary at everything because there's so many different aspects. That's just my little chime in on that. I see Megan wants to say something. Go ahead, Megan.
There's a lot that I want to say. Yeah, I sort of agree with you, and it makes this conversation about equity sort of interesting, right? Because we all have different gifts, we all have different superpowers, and yet we're all very ordinary at the same time. But it's, do we have the resources to help us nurture and cultivate and activate, right, the gifts within us? And we all don't have the same opportunities. I acknowledge that, but we all have different superpowers and strengths, and then even challenges, and so our outcomes aren't always going to be the same necessarily. And I do agree that yes, we should give a lot more credence or reverence or whatever word you want to use to those people that are doing wonderful things and building schools across the world. But I would invite us to, again, not pit people against one another, right? The basketball player or the phenomenal athlete isn't any better or worse. It's just whatever your own value system is. But what if there's room for all of it? And then we're going to start to open up and expand the conversation and see lots of different potentials and possibilities, right? And I just thought of something. To me, being extraordinary, standing in your uniqueness, it is that not rebellious for rebellion, defiant, screw you sake, but it's rather the status quo doesn't work for me, or maybe 10 people think that we need to do away with sports. I don't feel that way, so I'm going to be rebellious in the sense that I'm going to like flower in the way that feels natural to me. Does that make sense?
Sense. And I'm also going to kind of agree with Dan as well about serving other people. So if I'm a great rapper or I'm a great carpenter, how is that serving other people and how is that bringing other people up? So I think part of extraordinary, and I like that definition as well, is being a leader and helping other people elevate themselves. So if I'm just like, hey, I'm a great, taking naps. Okay, yeah, but how is that benefiting other people? And I think Dan measures the success by how many people that you can benefit, how many people you can help. And so the next question I have, as we're running out of time, but let me just say one last thing before I go to the next question about this. And I grew up in the church. My dad's a pastor, started schools, and he's in that framework. I wanted to play sports. I played basketball. And the truth of the matter for me, I was getting bad grades in school. I was a bad kid. I was flunking people. I was just a troublemaker kid until I found basketball and I made that a goal for me. And my dad said, "You sold your soul to the ball." But I definitely changed my life and started getting better grades. I wanted to get to college. I wanted to get to the NBA. I had this dream. So for me, it's like it's not just, and now I'm going a little bit against Dan here. It's not just throwing how far you can throw the ball. There's so much that came out of. I can say that the NBA has shaped my life more than my parents, and that's really hard to say. But because their parents gave me so much, or than church did, because I grew up in the church. But church didn't give me that discipline that I needed to transform my life in a way because I had this dream. I'm going after it. So there's a lot of benefit other than entertainment. Other than entertainment, that kid that is not going to throw that football, he could probably be in a gang somewhere. Now you gave him something to do, something to live for, something to dream, and that teaches discipline and all these other great things. So I just wanted to say that for me, it's not just how far you can throw a ball. Even like starting a school. The guys in the NFL could probably start 100 schools in Africa with the money that they're making. Now you're saying like who's giving the money? Like you're giving money to go watch a game versus giving money to build a school. So I get that part. Obviously, giving money to build a school, I still put that at a higher value to do that. But I've gotten so much from the world, from the existence of basketball, existence of the NBA, and the dreaming of being trying to be like Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan. I didn't have time to be in gangs and getting in trouble. I had to get my grades right so I could go play basketball. So basketball gave me something to be extraordinary with, and it felt really good when I was better than the other kids, or when I was like doing something and I was becoming a leader. And I got to go play overseas and all that stuff. And so I feel like my life has been shaped a lot by the existence of this professional sports. And even though they're just playing, but they're such an inspiration for me and for so many kids. And it's such a big industry that, so many things happen. Even in that school in Indonesia that someone's making basketball shoes and wherever, that's helping the industry. Like it's a bigger industry than just a sport. That's just my little take on that. And, it's okay if we disagree too. So go
No,
ahead.
and just to be clear, I'm not saying that those aren't valuable things in our society. We do need entertainment. We do need a wide variety of places for people to go and be extraordinary. And if basketball provides that for a child or for anybody, I applaud that. I think that's fantastic. All I'm saying is that being extraordinary in sports is being extraordinary for yourself. It doesn't take on the responsibility of being extraordinary for everybody else on this planet. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not saying it's not valuable. And I'm not saying people shouldn't earn money when they're really good at what they do. All I'm saying is when you are inspired by Michael Jordan, that's great. He inspires you to go do something, to play basketball instead of being a gang. That's fantastic. That level of inspiration. Michael Jordan has done a fair amount of philanthropy, right? He has reached back into the community, but he's not celebrated for that. And to me, that's a problem.
I get it. I agree. Yeah.
Because actually, if we reframe this, yes, of course, we'd like to get out in the world and do things and give and be of service, of course. But even Dan, to your point of taking naps, how is that elevating humanity, right? If we remember, I personally don't think that everybody's dharma in life is to be on a huge world global stage, but we can absolutely elevate people around us and be a positive example to remind others of a greater truth within themselves. Let's take the person who's just taking naps. What if they're just demonstrating, aha, I've got a great balance with rest and relaxation, right? I opt out of hustle culture because that's working against myself. It doesn't mean I don't take the aligned action and put myself out there and do all the things. But what if that person who's taking naps is actually a lot kinder? They're a lot more compassionate. And then they're going out to the store, they're going out into their communities, just in their everyday exchanges. And they're just like calm, or they're able to problem solve with greater responsibility, and the ripple effect of change that has. I think we also have to look at where that's valuable as well.
Got it. All right, all right. Thank you for that. So the next question I want to go to, and then we took a long time with this, is that what are the benefits of so we got it's hard work. We know it takes something to be extraordinary. Everyone's definition is not the same, but what are some benefits? And I had named some when in the kind of the marketing of this of being an extraordinary person, because it is a lot of work. But isn't it just easier to just chill and eat ice cream and just live a comfortable life and not do that, and I have some benefits that I thought of, but I would like to hear some of your guys' benefits. And here for me, here are some benefits. So because I get a chance to do that I've gotten from the quest of trying to be extraordinary, trying to be better than I am, personal growth. So in my definition of extraordinary is you are growing and you want to be better and you want to improve and you want to help other people. So for me, it gives me courage, because it takes courage to want to be better. You have to take courage to drop your ego, to learn something, and to accept you don't know. It also gives me self confidence, because what I couldn't do yesterday, I can do today, and what I can't do today, I can do tomorrow. So it gives me some type of self confidence that I am growing, that I can do something. So if I'm stuck somewhere, I can remember, hey, I couldn't do XYZ, 2 years ago, and here I am doing it now. So I could probably do something else. That self confidence is a really life changing thing for me. Number three, I'm gonna give you guys seven real quick for the audience. Is freedom from resentment. I think when we're extraordinary, we don't get stuck on, or it is not always true for everybody. There's some really extraordinary people out there that don't have all of these seven things, but these are some of the things that I can see that you can benefit from. That freedom from resentment is when you're easier to forgive and let go and collaborate. Let's move on. I need people to help me with my dream. I need people to collaborate with me. So say somebody makes a mistake, I'm not going to stay and just sitting there with resentment and holding on to things, holding on to grudges. That doesn't serve my dream, doesn't serve me, doesn't serve the other person. If you're somebody that has a big enough vision and you're bringing people in, you definitely need that freedom from resentment. And a lot of people are stuck, and they can't do greater things because of resentment, because they're mad at their parents, because they're mad at people around them. And now you can't collaborate. I don't trust anybody. I'm going to do it by myself. And at the end of the day, you can't do great things on your own. You need other people. So freedom of the resentment is just a huge thing. I was able to forgive people in my life, forgive my family, forgive my parents, forgive everybody has to forgive their parents for something, forgive your brothers, and you have to do that to get to the point where you are living extraordinary. Those like some of the stuff. Also, I want to go down the list really quick. Peace of mind. I think as long as I'm growing and being extraordinary, it can give me peace of mind. I can express love to others in a deeper way, in a more special way, without it being like, oh, weird. I can tell people I love you, man. I love you, and it's based on a love that we're working together. I love you because I always say you got to love people if you want to lead people, and if you're extraordinary, there is a part of leadership that comes in, whether it's not on a big scale, it's only your community, but there's still a leadership value. And to lead people properly, you need to display some kind of love. And I feel that comes from wanting to be extraordinary. Number six, ability to make decisions. Knowing that I used to struggle with making decisions. It took me so long to make a decision until I got to the point where failure or success means almost nothing to me, because I know what I want and I know where I'm going. And whether this podcast today totally flops, next Saturday I'm coming on doing the same thing. Whether it goes great, I'm coming on doing the same thing. So the success or failure doesn't even mean anything. And when you're on your path extraordinary, success actually means nothing unless you use it for something else. So you're always growing. And failure means nothing unless you use that to stop. So you're on that path and on that extraordinary thing. I feel like it's easy for me to make decisions now because I'm not stuck on it, because I know there's really no, if it's quote unquote a wrong decision, I learned something. I went through that. Okay, I'm still going to be doing the same thing tomorrow. I'm still going to thank everybody, and we're going to go back and do the show. Nothing is going to stop me, even a bad decision. So then it makes it easier and funner to make decisions. That's what I got. And lastly, number seven, one of the benefits I get from being wanting to be an extraordinary person or enlightened person, you can say, is happiness. And that's worth millions to me. Being happy, waking up every morning, going about my activities, not be like, oh, I got to go to this job, or I got to do this, doing things I don't want to do. Now I'm really doing things I want to do, and it's hard on what I want to do. So I experience hard, I experience stress, but I'm experiencing stress in what I chose to experience stress in. That when I overcome that stress is what I actually want. Because you can fail at what you don't want. So might as well fail at what you want. You can succeed at what you don't want. I'd rather fail at what I don't want, what I want, than succeed at what I don't want. So those are some benefits. I'd like to hear from the rest of you guys on the panel here. What do you think are some benefits of being, and like why would I want to be an extraordinary person? What are some benefits of that? Whoever wants to go first, just jump in.
I mean, to me, the biggest one is just joy. It's just that simple. I mean, that's one of those words I think that people, kind of discount because it's just sort of trite, and it's a lot of poetry, but that's really what it is. It's joy. I mean, for me, I get a great deal of joy out of watching somebody else succeed. And if they had some measure of success based on something I gave them, some piece of advice, some wisdom I picked up along the way, I like that's it. That's it, man. You know, when I have a client who, moves from being at the bottom of the barrel of their life to singing and dancing because they're so thrilled and excited to get up every day, that brings me extraordinary joy. So that's the benefit for me. I can't really find another benefit that exceeds that. There's a lot of other benefits to trying to push yourself to become extraordinary. But smiling and laughter and happiness and getting up in the morning and looking just out at the world and at life and going, it's going to be a fantastic day because somebody out there is going to get a little bit more successful today because I'm helping push him. That's so intrinsically joyful to me. So that's my biggest benefit.
Anybody else?
We were talking in the chat in the inspirational group, and somebody was asking, what is it to be enrolling? And to me, it's the opportunity to be touched and moved and inspired, not just me, but other people. And to be an extraordinary person is to be in that listening and listening. How is it going to grow me? How is it going to grow them? Dan Jay was talking earlier about the baseball player, and then the person who created um the school. It's like what I resonated and touched me more was the teacher. What did she do that was so it's ordinary people who are courageously taking on extraordinary things and going with them and leading and sharing and getting it out in the world that inspires me. And it's like for us, so for me, being an extraordinary human being, it's like what's going to have you grow, and that's what lights me up every day. That fulfillment of seeing every others and myself soar into something that we didn't think we could do before.
To say I can live authentically. I am not going to put myself in a box based on societal expectations. And conversely, I'm also not going to demand or need that somebody else live up to my expectations, right? So, and Dan, you also mentioned, success and failure, right? What if it's all just feedback? What if we just make life itself the goal? Because the goalpost is always changing. It doesn't mean that we don't have, you know, um, things that we want to accomplish and arrive at, but where can we just like learn to see life itself as a big adventure and love it all with greater freedom, with greater personal power, with more of an open heart? And then what ripple effect is that going to have, right? If somebody else goes, ooh, they're like at ease in who they are. Oh yeah, I want to remember that I can be at ease in who I am as well. That to me just feels super yummy.
Hi, Megan, can you help somebody get to that point where they're, like you just said, that's just a beautiful thing you said. Can you guide somebody to get to that point?
For me, again, I'm only speaking from my own experience and then my own methods. I have a CAR method that I came up with as an acronym to really start to take power back from the disempowering narratives. Whose narrative is this? And again, stories are powerful. And I believe that more powerful or insidious than the stories themselves are the meanings that we give them. What are we making the things that happen to us mean about ourselves and the world around us? How that shapes how we participate in reality, or maybe we don't participate and we just become, victim consciousness. And so, how can we really start to go, all right, what are these stories and these narratives that I've been holding on to and maybe afraid to look at because there's always an emotional undercurrent that's, I believe, a lot of times we think that, change your thoughts, change your vibe. I believe that's backwards. And a lot of other people speak to this. Polyvagal theory, for example, right? 80% of the information we take in is actually through our body and 20% is through our mind. So when we can start to get curious about the emotions, right? That anger, that fear, Jan, you said resentment, that's a big one that we're still like locked into, even as an identity. And then the thoughts and the stories that we hold on to as a result of that. Where can we have the courage to go, all right, this feels crappy in my body objectively. Great. I'm not going to deny that. But what feels worse is either bypassing the emotion or feeling the emotion and then the negative narrative around it, right? This felt bad, therefore I am bad. You know what I'm saying? So how can we really start to go, all right, I can learn to feel safe, to feel all the feels, the good, bad, the ugly, right? I'm not avoiding my pain. I'm going to lean into my pain so that that becomes more of my power.
So beautiful. And actually, you made me think about when you said resentment as an identity. And there are cultures where it's part of the identity to be resentful. Some cultures that I'm a part of where where you need to be resentful for this other group of people. If not, you could get kicked out of the culture or kicked out of the community, because if you don't have this resentment, then you are considered some kind of a sellout. Yet resentment is holding me back from, that's kind of in a whole nother conversation, how to overcome that, where the resentment is like taught and you're supposed to have. And there's other cultures, when you talk about racism and stuff like from generation and nationalism, all the wars that are happening, a lot of that stuff is taught from when they're little kids. And then if you come and be like, oh, I'm not resentful anymore, I don't hate these group of people, everyone's gonna look at you like you're a traitor to them. And yet resentment is holding us back so there needs some kind of freedom. And that's what being an extraordinary person is. You have to step out and rebel and say, okay, I'm going to lead you guys out of this resentment. That's not an easy thing to do. But there's definitely some other great benefits in that. Did anybody want to name any other benefit maybe you could think of being extraordinary or starting that journey to being extraordinary?
Well, starting a journey, I mean, this is something that we've all talked about in different contexts, and it's starting with like 21-day challenges and things like this. If you have just simply made the decision to be extraordinary, then you kind of already are, right? I mean, that's, I think, the reality of the situation. The fact that you made that choice, you got up one day and said, I am done with mundanity. I am done sitting here. I am going to become someone that other people look to for leadership, for guidance, for mentorship, for whatever it is. The second you make that decision, that's it, man. You just crossed the border. You're in the extraordinary land now. Now take responsibility for your choice and make it real. Make it happen. Make it not just happen, make it massive. Come back. And what I would tell anybody who's watching this podcast, if you're thinking about becoming an extraordinary, then this is what I would ask you to do. This is super simple. I would just ask you to write it down right now, today. Write down this phrase: I will become an extraordinary human. And that's it. Just write that down and look at it. And a year from now, find that piece of paper and ask yourself if you achieved it. And if you didn't, write it down again and keep going.
Into extraordinary. I think that's fabulous.
Left.
Can I
Go
can
ahead,
I
Patty.
add there?
Yes.
Also, to be an extraordinary person, not only declaring it, but look at those the benefits. Courageous, self-confidence, freedom from resentment, peace of mind, expressing love to others, ability to make decisions, and happiness. And clarify, where am I, what's so right now for you, and where do I want to go, and then take the actions.
watching are getting the same feeling and emotion. So before we go, I'm going to go around one last time so that what can something people can do as, or not even do, maybe be, right? To do to become extraordinary, to like start doing. What I mean by that is like, being courageous or being peaceful, being charismatic, being enrolling, which is being always, and for me, inviting and being, people to participate and talking about your dream and talking about what you're doing. I'm enrolling people in that. I had also being unreasonable, which not making excuses, not letting reasons stop you. And I have no reasons that are going to stop me. So I'm, unreasonable in my quest. So all these different things of how you can be or even do. So just leave our audience with what can you do today or how can you be today? And you can become peaceful no matter what. You can be like, okay, I'm going to be peaceful, or I'm going to be this. There's great things that you guys, the audience, have been, and you haven't been that in a while. And you can flip the switch and say, I used to be very friendly and I'm not. Okay, let me go be that right now. Or I used to be very action oriented, right? Whatever it is that you used to be, maybe when you were younger, maybe when you were doing great things, just think about that. I'm talking to the audience now that they want to put in the comments, like, what can they be or what can they go be? But I want us, the coaches here, leave us with something. What can people practice today when as they get off this this podcast? What can they start practicing today to help them become an extraordinary person?
Mindfulness. Everything you said to me comes under that heading. Be kind, be thoughtful, be action oriented, listen to other people, take step. All of that is part of being mindful. Be mindful of yourself, be mindful of other people, be mindful of what they say, be mindful of what they do, be mindful of your reactions to them. All of the things that you brought up to me are subsets of simply being mindful. And one way I might make that really tangible for people is stop reacting.
Stop
Just
reacting.
stop reacting. Be proactive and then listen, observe, think, take time, be mindful in the way you approach the world, your friends, your family, and you will, if you're mindful, if you are truly mindful, you will be peaceful, you will be joyful, you will be helpful, you will be supportive. All of the things that nurture extraordinariness, all of the things that push you to become extraordinary, start with becoming mindful. So that's what I put out there to everybody today.
Thank you.
Be
Thank
mindful,
you.
stop reacting.
Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead, Patti.
Yeah, everything Dan said was great. That. And also be present. Don't take it personal. You're a human being. This is like, oh, what's missing? Like, look at what's missing in there, in that equation that I actually want more of or to embrace or grow.
Awesome. Okay, great.
But
Megan,
clarity, clarity, clarity.
you got
And
it.
then
Got it.
act. And ask other people around you that you trust. Not the naysayers, but the people that are going to tell you honestly, rawly, you know, what makes me an extraordinary human being. And
Got
allow
it.
yourself to be acknowledged and appreciated.
Mm, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Patti. Megan.
Yes, to sort of piggyback on the rest of you and that salient perspective, I would say, and I'm going to try to bring this into a tangible step, personal responsibility with radical curiosity versus criticism. So, for example, what are some narratives that I'm holding on to that are creating some of my outcomes, or maybe I'm being reactive to people versus like mindful and responsive, right? Daily triggers. What if I can start to embrace some of my daily common triggers as a tool for my growth rather than a threat to my growth? So we've all dealt with traffic, correct? we're stuck in traffic, or maybe we're like, oh my God, now I'm running late, and maybe we can feel the anxiety welling up. Our palms are starting to sweat. Maybe we're laying on the horn. Maybe we're, giving the middle finger to the driver next to us, or even cursing them out, or worse, getting really, really angry. All right. So in those moments, we want to take a breath and we want to go, what is really going on here? Is it the fact that I'm running late? Or is it what I've made mean about myself when I'm late? Right? Was I scolded? Was I humiliated? Was I ostracized? Did somebody tell me that I was bad or inconsiderate? You know what I mean? And it's like, all right, now where can I start to feel those emotions in my body? And where can I start to get more intimate with them so that I can start to get more curious about, aha, it's really not that they're running late. Yes, if we have a chronic issue with running late, we need to look at that, because we also want to be mindful of other people's times as well. But I'm talking about like in those moments every once in a while, right? Like your day's thrown off and you're like, oh crap, now I'm late to a meeting, right? So that we stop laying on the horn, so that we stop flipping the person off. It's like, aha, where can I take responsibility for that unprocessed pain, the time that I was late when I was 5 and my mom scolded me, right? Aha, this is not that moment. And how can I be a little bit more curious about it and start to let it be okay to feel that emotion so that it processes through and I can start to let go of that story?
Got it. Thank you so much. All right, guys, we're gonna end the show, and I just want everyone to just go around and say, how can somebody wants to work with you, Patti, Dan, or Megan? How can they contact you? How can they work with you? Just real quick, 10 seconds, and then we'll end there, because you guys are obviously extraordinary people. I've gotten blessed and feel the grace of just being in your presence and talking with you guys. I'm lucky enough to be part of your communities, and we're all in a community together. But not everybody listening has that opportunity. So if somebody wants to contact you or work with you, and the information will also be part of the information on YouTube. But how can somebody contact you or work with you if they want to?
I'm pretty easy to find. My name, DanJahn.com. If you want to find me on social media, just put the word "the" in front of that. TheDanJahn, the Dan Jahn. Super easy to find. If you want to grab a book of mine off of Amazon, it's a nice, inexpensive way to get introduced to some of the stuff I think and talk about. So just head to Amazon and search that name, Dan Jahn. I'm out. I'm about. It's easy to find me, and I'd love to work with anybody.
Thank you. Who's next?
I'm Patti Akers, and right now I'm studying at my website. So the easiest way is just to email me at Patti Akers, just how it's written on the thing here with no separations, PattiAkres at hotmail.com.
Awesome. Wonderful. And Megan?
Yeah, I have a speaker landing page, although it's a little wonky at the moment just in terms of the address. So you can email me at meganhenryspeaks.com, MEGANHENRY speaks.com. Oh, excuse me, Megan Henry speaks at gmail.com.
All right, so we're gonna end the call. And I just want to say one last thing for the speakers, and for I want to thank all the speakers that were here today. But as you guys can notice, the finished product is never finished. Success will be extraordinary. It's never a finished product. Dan will continue updating his website. Patti will continue creating hers, redoing it. Megan's gonna. It's not a end product. Oh, I'm an extraordinary person. You're never gonna get. There's no finished product. It's a journey that you're continuing to build yourself upon, but it's an exciting journey. It's a journey about personal growth, but nobody finishes and say, oh, I got it. This is exactly what I want to. And if we're talking about, I like to use athletes example because everybody knows them and it's like kind of like a thing. Even Michael Jordan's upset that he didn't win 7 championships and they broke up the team. He's like, yeah, I'm pissed off at that. He got 6 championships. They say he's the greatest. He's still mad at his team for that. So you never finish the greatness that it is. LeBron James, 22 years, and he's still playing, chasing something. There's always something to improve on. So don't look at people like, oh, they're not perfect, so, hey, you're not great, you're not extraordinary. Extraordinary is not a finished product. Extraordinary is a quest, a journey that you're on to better yourself, to better other people, and to just be an extraordinary person with all these great benefits. Thank you guys very much. We went a little bit over time. I love you guys all. And we'll see you next Sunday on the next podcast for some more grace and inspiration.
Thank you.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching the Grace and Inspiration Podcast with Dan Nzinga. See you next time.